Wait. Hey guys, welcome to another She Knows Arsenal Daily. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Justino Tweets and at She Knows Arsenal. Yep, welcome to another episode. We're going to be going through all the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news today. And yeah, deadline day is near. Deadline day is near. And so as you can sense, you can kind of sense it in the fan base. There's a little bit of anxiety, fear, pain, suffering, all those types of things. Because as Arsenal fans, when it gets to the end of the window, there always feels like there is work to be done. And we never quite know what's going on. And we tend to leave things late or not get them done at all. So we're going to be talking about all the most recent news and all that kind of stuff. I also want to let you guys know that I'm going to be more active on Instagram now than I am going to be on Twitter. I just want to shift some of my focus over, do some more reels and TikToks and things like that. So if you're not following me on Instagram, you should be. My handle is Jacinio Graham. So on Twitter, it's Jacinio Tweets. On Instagram, it's Jacinio Graham. So if you guys want to go on over there, you guys can follow me there. I'll be more active on there than Twitter in the future. Let's see who's in here. Lynn says, good afternoon, Jess. Hope you had a good weekend. I did have a good weekend. Whenever Arsenal win, I am a very happy camper. DJ Oni says, where's Jess? I'm here. I was probably only like a minute late. Crispy Rice says, hey, Jess. Hey to you as well. Lauren West says, big up, Jess. Big up to you as well. Elliot Roberts says, hey, Jess. Looking lovely as ever. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. William says, love from Zambia. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up, from so far away. Zishan says everyone is panicking that we don't sign anyone. I say let's just see what happens. Newman says Jess is always happy. I am not always happy. You guys know this. DJ says saw your video on Instagram earlier about the celebration police. Look, my whole thought process on this is that I do think some people are going overboard, like in terms of some of the fans saying that, we're title challengers. I think some people are saying it in jest and some people are just taking it a little bit too far. But ultimately, that's what being a fan is about. Fandom is being obsessed with your team and having hope, that it's going to be your year. That's what football is all about. So in terms of fans, I don't think fans can ever go truly overboard. That's what being a fan is about. In terms of the players, these are a lot of young players that haven't really won anything before. They're playing for a big club for the first time in their lives, and they're watching themselves kind of create a new culture and create a new era for Arsenal and be a big part of it as young players. So you can't really fault them for being excited. And that's not to say that I think it's very clear that Arteta has drilled into them that they haven't done anything. Like nothing has been done. Arteta says it after every single game. Odegaard says it after every single game. The club is very clear on like we haven't done anything yet, but celebrate the moments. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think Arsenal's mentality is more indicative of what they do on the pitch versus how they celebrate matches. That's just me, so that's my take on it. But I think ultimately people are just going to say what they want to say, and we just have to just get over it. We're Arsenal. We've been poor for a long period of time. People are not used to seeing us happy, so they're always going to have something to say. BroPro says it's Jacinho. Hope you're doing well. Yo-Yo says 4 wins out of 4. Gunnar should enjoy this. I think so too, because I mean, as a fan, I don't think you ever really regret celebrating the moments as they come. I don't think at the end of the season when we haven't maybe reached our benchmark, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have celebrated that one win. I shouldn't have celebrated that Wolves win. I shouldn't have celebrated that win against blah, blah, blah. I don't think we really feel that way. So as fans, I think you're more than justified to celebrate however you want to, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. I do want to set a little target for the likes today. I would love to get to, let's say, 150 likes. Let's see how that goes. I know there's only 119 of you guys in here right now, which is amazing, but I feel like more will come. And so I'm going to say 150 likes. So if you guys are liking the channel, uh please, and what we're talking about, please go ahead and like the video. It's totally free and it would really help me out. Jacinho Graham. That is my Instagram handle. If you guys want to follow me there. So, let's chit chat. Let's talk. The deadline day is near, and this is always the time where I get to like, oh, like let's just make sure that we set ourselves up for success. Let's make sure that we have all the players that we need in order to compete on all fronts. I think with what we have right now, we could challenge for top 4. I think that's right about where we are. I think 3rd and 4th are in play. I'm not quite sure if 2nd is in play, but I think 3rd and 4th is in play, and we can make a really good push for top 4 with what we have. But in terms of going really far in Europa League, making sure that we're not embarrassed in the FA Cup, things like that, we need more players. We definitely need more players. When I look at the depth chart, I think, I still see that there's going to be some players that are going to have to play every single game. I don't quite feel like I'm seeing enough depth on the right wing, especially now that Pepe is gone. And I don't think I see enough depth in terms of where Thomas Partey is, in that deepest position in midfield. I don't see it. So I think those positions do need to be addressed. And I think Arsenal need to be more aggressive than they ever have been, because just to go kind of back a little bit before we get into like the nitty gritty of the transfer talk, is we missed out on a really big opportunity this past season. We could have been in Champions League this season. We could have pushed the project forward 1 year. And so I do think that by missing out on it, they have to do everything they can to make it now, especially because it's going to be harder than ever. The teams, the middle of the table is stronger than it's ever been before. There are teams like Newcastle, like Crystal Palace, like Brighton. These teams are really hard to beat. They just are. And so you have those teams, and then you have the middle that could be a little bit hit or miss. So I do think that there's going to be less points. Uh, and there's going to be a lot of teams fighting for a couple of spots. I don't think Manchester United are going to be anywhere near as bad as what they were last season. They're bringing in good players, and they're really going for it. When you talk about going for it, they are going for it. 100 million for Anthony, 60 million for Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez, Malacia, and they'll probably get a couple more players as well. They're really going for it. Chelsea is always in and amongst the top 4 contenders anyway. They have a good team, and they're going to add to their squad as well. Spurs, as lucky as they are, as bad a football as they play, they are a top 4 side. They will be in and amongst it. And then there's us. There's us. And our starting 11 is very good and right up there with everybody else, but when you peel back those layers, I do feel like there's some depth issues there, and that's what we need to address. I hear the ideas around Vieira maybe potentially playing off of the right wing, but as we saw with Saka and Martinelli against Fulham, I do think there's a spot for somebody that's a one-on-one dual expert, somebody that from a standing start can get past their man, and we don't particularly have that in a winger at the moment, and Vieira is not that. So relying upon his versatility, I think, is something that Arsenal have done in the past, and we failed. Relying upon the versatility of a player that we've never seen play before, that may need some adaptation, I do think is risky. And so I get that we signed Vieira, and Vieira is probably going to be a really good player. I do think he's going to be amazing. I still think Arsenal need to push a little bit more. And when you look at how the initial part of the window went, when we bought Gabriel Jesus and then we were going for Rafinha and Lisandro Martinez, the money for Lisandro Martinez ended up going to Zinchenko. So where's the Rafinha money? Where's that money that we were going to put into that winger? There has to be something there. And so I think Arsenal need to push the boat out for at least one player. We need two, but I would like at least one player to come in, because I don't think we have enough. And I think most of us kind of agree. Joshua says Martinelli needs competition. ESR has been playing midfield. I think Saka needs more competition than anybody. I think he's looked the most slow to get started. in the season, and I think he's somebody that definitely needs somebody nipping on his heels. I think Martinelli passed that test last season. I think he had competition from ESR and virtually made it impossible for ESR to come back in that position. Saka needs to do the same. Crispy Rice says, "Do you think we should splash 50 million on Neto?" So with Neto, well, let's just back up really quick. I do want to put this out here before we get into like specific players, but this is what Arteta has said. Arteta has said that on transfers, it's clear now that we are becoming a little bit short as we end the squad because we have so many outs again, and we need to get that balance right. And so we were really, really thin last season after January, and we've gotten rid of players again. Bellerin will go, Ainsley Maitland-Niles will probably go, and we're probably sitting there around 22 players or so. And we need maybe because if you also think about the players that we have Marquinhos in the squad, we have Sambi in the squad. Those are two players that I don't necessarily feel like are could give us a lot in terms of real quality backup, if that makes sense. I think Tomiyasu is quality backup, Tierney is quality backup, but when you really look at it, Sambi is a young player that we don't quite know what he is yet, and Marquinhos is definitely a young player that we shouldn't have any expectations of this season. I know that he started off well and he was good in the under 23s, but I have a very difficult time thinking that he's going to be the answer to getting Saka some rest. So if you take those two out of the squad, we definitely are in need of a midfielder and a winger. We are short. And Arteta is saying that. He said it multiple times. He said that the squad is thin. We're short an attacker. We need to get that balance right. And so I've seen some people say if we don't get anybody, it's Arteta's fault. But looking at what he's saying, it can't possibly be Arteta's fault. This is on Adu. This is on Adu. He cannot leave us short again. You know, they have been planning this since January. They made a lot of the decisions that they made in January based on this window, because they didn't want to make us short in this window or, have to take away from this window. So for me, it's like, so you can't leave us short again. And so I get the window was good so far. Um, the window has been good so far, but we can't possibly be thinking that that's enough. And I know Arteta's saying that now. And yeah, we need something else for sure. And for people that like Jeff, like I love, like I think you always have that ability to come from the other side and have a difference of opinion that sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With Marquinhos, I think it says a lot about where Arsenal feel like he is in his development by them going after Rafinha and also looking at Neto. I think those actions in itself show you that Arsenal probably don't think he's where he needs to be. He can probably fill in some early cup competition minutes, but he's definitely not going to sit Saka down during the league season. And that's kind of what we need, right? Jim Howson is saying, so Arteta's saying we need taller, fatter players. No, I don't think that's what he's saying, but fair enough. That's funny. Joshua says, don't worry. Adu has a nice outfit and is barbecue ready. I hope he has a nice vacation on deadline day. He deserves it. Don Silent Adu. Well, the thing is we have signed players on deadline day, so don't count it out. We signed Thomas Partey on deadline day. We've signed Tomiyasu on deadline day. So let's not say that it's not going to happen. It just isn't looking good, Rev. It's not looking good at the moment. But let's go ahead and get into this. There's 213 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I have a goal that I'd like to get on this stream, and I'd love to get 150 likes going. So make sure you guys smash the like for me. So let's talk about Pedro Neto. It's funny because today is Monday, and a lot of people were saying, okay, I want to wake up to an Orny bomb this morning. And we did, but it was negative news. It was that Pedro Neto to Arsenal looks highly improbable, very unlikely. There was a good breakdown of kind of how the Pepe loan deal worked out, and we're going to be saving about 10 million pounds just off of him uh minimizing his wages or coming down off of his wages to make that move possible. And Nice are gonna cover 50% and we're gonna cover 25%. And so it's a good deal all around. We get to save money on it. Pepe gets to, stretch his legs in France and everybody's happy. But we made this decision knowing that we were gonna be short. And so going after Pedro Neto, which from the very beginning seemed quite unlikely to me based on the way it was being reported from David Ornstein, makes me a little bit irritated just because it's like, go after somebody that you actually feel like you could get. Go after somebody that you actually think you can, that you have an opportunity to get. If it's going to be so difficult, don't waste time. And that's how I kind of felt about Vlahovic. I felt like it was a suicide mission. I know that they came back after it and said, oh, well, we were never really as interested as they made it seem. But ultimately, you have certain journalists speaking about it, and it does feel like to me sometimes we set our sights on players that we know there's no chance of getting. I kind of like that we go after players and try to really push the envelope in some regard, but the backup options to that need to be at least obtainable. And so even though Neto may not be obtainable, which is fine, or attainable, I mean, there needs to be options behind it that we can get to, and so I get that. High Tech JSA being ambitious, it's all good and well and fine being ambitious, but you can't let the window close and say, well, we were ambitious. That's not good enough. You still have to have alternatives that you can get. So it's not just be ambitious or get nothing. It's be ambitious. And if it doesn't work out, have alternatives so we don't leave ourselves short. So I'm okay with it. It is kind of annoying, but make sure that you have alternatives. So the Neto thing seems like it's done. It seems like it's not going to happen based on what Ornstein is saying. Fabrizio Romano is also saying it's very, very difficult to do. Wolves are not really wanting to sell him, and I can understand why. They have him on a long-term deal. He's one of their best players. If they wait another season and he plays really well, they could probably get 80 million for him. So why sell him to us for 50 million now if we could even come up to that? So yeah, I understand why it might be really difficult to do. The only thing that I will say is that there's some people that are saying this might be some negotiating tactics or something like that. We just have to wait and see. They have just agreed a deal for Sasa Kalajdzic, or I probably just butchered that, a striker, but I'm not quite sure that indicates that they're gonna sell Neto. They need to bring in a striker because Raul Jimenez is not he's never really gotten back up to, his best. So I'm not quite sure that means, okay, that means that they're gonna move things around and shift things around and then get rid of Neto. I don't really think that that's what it is. So yeah, Neto looks like it's not gonna happen, and that kind of turns our attention to what's next. What do they have up their sleeves? Um, Joshua says, "At most, departures are going to happen, but if we're being real, I keep Ainsley because we're never signing a mid." So, Safi says, Mudyrk and Zaha are they are good midfielders. Caicedo or Kessie. Kessie is a Barcelona player. I don't think we're gonna get him, and Caicedo would probably cost you a fortune. Can't see him either. Nen says Neto is slower and less versatile compared to Mudryk. I don't know anything about Mudryk. I've never seen him play live or anything like that. Just kind of seen the comps or whatever. It looks like a good player, but we'll talk about it. Um, Joshua says Neto is another classic. We tried Gooners. I have seen this in January, and look what occurred. Fifth. I mean, it could have been like we just want to put it out there. Um, we just gonna kind of put it out there, and you know, we could say that we tried, but we didn't get it over the line. But Arsenal can't be this stupid. They can't possibly be this stupid. I feel like they have to know that they need to bring in at least one more player. They can't run Saka into the ground. I get what you guys are saying about Marquinhos and Fabio Vieira filling in. That's just not good enough. And you made us wait until the summer because we were meant to have a really big summer, and we were going to really push. But I'm not quite sure that I see Jesus, Zinchenko, Fabio Vieira, Matt Turner, Marquinhos as really pushing it. I see that as it was a good window, but it's not great. Yo-Yo says quietly glad we're not getting Neto. I'd be interested to see why you are here, why you think that, or why you feel that. I'm actually going to put out a poll right now because I think it'd be fun. to see what you guys think. Will Arsenal sign another player before the deadline? Will Arsenal sign another player before the deadline? So I just put a poll out there so you guys can vote on that. And right now we have 116 likes, which is amazing. We're about, I can't do the math, 35, likes away from the target that I set. So make sure you guys are doing that for me as well. Let's see. Sane out of the blue sounds very like a fantasy. So yeah. So now we're kind of into so if not Neto, who? Who could we potentially get? So Asensio has come up, and I think mostly it's an easy link to make because he is represented by George Mendes, Gestafoot, who also represents Pedro Neto and also represents Fabio Vieira. So it is an easy link to make. We're linked with Asensio quite often, and he's the type of player that I think he does have quality, but he doesn't necessarily solve our issues for the one-on-one duels. He's more of a creative forward than anything else, and we have quite a bit of those. You could put Fabio Vieira as a creative forward, you can put ESR as a creative forward. So he doesn't necessarily solve those issues. In terms of Asensio, this is kind of like the headline on this is that Asensio has joined George Mendes Gestafoot agency, and a representative is on standby to talk to the Gunners in London, with sources close to the player suggesting Arsenal in the box seat to land him. That's from Tom Hopkinson of the Mirror. And then from Express Sport, they're saying that Arsenal are facing competition for Marco Asensio in the last few days of the window from Newcastle. Newcastle have been linked with him the entire window. It's a player that I do think suits their project quite well because, they want to bring in quality players, maybe that have 1 year left on their deal. They weren't able to get Paqueta, and they want to bring in players that definitely lift the profile of their team. And I think he would fit that for them. Now, would he wanna go there? I'm not sure because they don't have any European football, and there's no guarantee that they'll have it next season. Some people, are saying that they're a shoo-in for European spots. I'm not quite sure that they are, but I'm not sure that he want to join them. I think they could pay his wages, but Arsenal would probably be a more attractive proposition to him because we are in some sort of European competition. But, you know, I think Asensio is a quality player that has injury issues. So I wouldn't like die if this was a player that we went after, but I just still feel like when we're looking at our players and from a standing start, can they be that one-on-one duel monster? They're just not that. And we went after Rafinha and Pedro Neto for a reason. It's because that's what they thrive in. 1v1, 1v1 duels. This feels like a player that ups the quality of the team, but doesn't necessarily solve all of our issues. And that's kind of what happens when you go down your list of transfer targets. Rafinha solves that. He's probably the perfect option. Neto, he solves that, but he's kind of still raw. He doesn't have some of the other qualities. He's not as refined. And then when you go down the list a little bit more, you have somebody like Asensio, ups the quality. The manager probably likes him, but he doesn't really solve a lot of our issues. But he costs less. He doesn't, the fee is not as high because they're saying that it would cost maybe like 20 something million to bring him in, 1 year left on his deal. And he hasn't re signed with Real Madrid. So, I do think that there are players like Asensio that, you know, don't start for top clubs, but definitely kind of walk into our starting 11. And I think he's kind of that. But I just wonder what position he would play. He can also, play in midfield. He can do that as well. So there's that other option. But I just look at this as like, okay, as George Mendes is trying to get us to do this, without actually getting us the players that we really wanted. We wanted Rafinha, we didn't get him. We wanted Pedro Neto, we didn't get him. Now you're going to give us this guy, and he doesn't really solve a lot of our problems. So yeah, Asensio is linked to the club. I can see how this kind of makes sense in some ways, but I can see more reasons why it doesn't. Now, I guess the biggest question I have to ask you guys is if it came down to it and it was the last day of the window and it was Asensio or nothing, would you choose to not bring anybody in or would you bring in Asensio? That's the question that I want to ask you guys because, some people are like, well, we shouldn't just be bringing in anybody. We shouldn't just sign somebody for the sake of it. But I do think that there's a world in between signing your perfect target and signing somebody for the sake of it. And it's somewhere where you can improve your squad, but maybe it doesn't 100% work out. But I'd love to know what you guys think about that. If it was the last day of the window, an hour left, time is ticking down, and it was Asensio or nothing, would you choose to bring in nobody and wait it out? Or would you just say, you know what? I don't think that this solves our problems. We should be really headstrong on this. Ebby says, I would take Asensio purely for depth. Woody says, same, nothing for me. Philip says, no to Asensio if we had to buy him. Joshua says, Conte didn't get all of his preferred in Jan. Look how that turned out. That's a really good point. Lynn says, I've read a little about Asensio and he's quite lazy. I can't see Arteta wanting him. I didn't know that he was lazy, but I'll take your word on that. Hightech J says he would get nice game time in Europa, gain some fitness and form. Solomon says Asensio is a really good player. Can't believe fans are questioning him. Ben says nothing. Dr. Omizia says, I'd bring in Asensio rather than not bringing in anybody. Elliot Roberts says Asensio is a carbon copy of what we have. Martinelli, Saka, ESR. High Tech J says I'd bring him in. Joshua says I would take it in all capitals. Unknown user says Asensio did score 10 goals in 1,700 minutes last season. That's not bad at all. People are making sense. Kai Strop says he fits in. He has scored big goals in big games. The age works for the rest of the squad. He'll be a good rotation in our front five. Jovo says Asensio smells like Dennis Suarez. Let's see. Tala says, Jess, Arsenal will no longer sign players for the sake of it. Top improvement will be made once we make Champions League. We can't get our perfect 11 in 3 or 4 transfer windows. Yeah, but we can't be hanging outside the club anymore. And that's kind of where I'm at. I get that we want to only sign our perfect players. And if we don't get that, then we'll just wait it out. But waiting it out can sometimes be the difference between getting top 4 or not. And personally, I do think that is something that you could say happened to us in January. Sliding doors moment where we could have brought in a loan. Let's just say in an alternative universe, we bring in Kulusevski on a loan because he was offered to us, and he's also an Arsenal fan. We were offered Kulusevski. Could he have not scored a goal against Burnley? And that would have been the 3 points that we needed in order to get into the Champions League. Could that have also been the reason why Spurs didn't get into the Champions League? Potentially. So I think that when you're not, top, if you're not Liverpool or Man City, you're not really in the same category of only getting our top targets because what we have is good enough at the moment. I think we will suffer if we don't bring in anybody else. And I do see players on the market right now that feel like, we could get them in and improve us. So I'm not really buying this whole we have to get the perfect player. I feel like we will suffer for that. But hey, it is what it is. Chamoy says he's a big name with mediocre output. It'll be a good loan. We're light in right wing department. Pap says Nuno will be back next season for backup for Saka next season. I don't think Nuno is a winger. I will stand by that very, very, hard. He was a winger that wasn't good enough to play as a winger, and he was moved to left back. So he's not going to play winger for Arsenal. Doc Tabolo says, let's get Tielemans and use what we have until Jan. Yo-Yo says, Arsenal don't have to shop in the bargain bin for reinforcements. Shin says, break the bank and go for De Jong. So yeah, it's a very mixed, a mixed bag here. Some of you guys are saying you would take him. Some would say not. But I just feel like sometimes you can't always get your number one target. And we've done a really good job to get, number one target. Or Zinchenko was probably as good as we could get for not getting Lisandro Martinez. We got Jesus, number one target. We brought in Fabio Vieira, which is still kind of like, okay, what is he? What is he doing here? This kind of stuff. Or not what is he doing here, but what is he? But we could stand to bring in somebody else. We really, really could, regardless if they're number one target or not. There's 333 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Next. So let's talk about MM. I'm never gonna say this boy's name right. Mykhailo Mudryk, whatever. Shakhtar Donetsk, young player that a lot of people have switched their attentions to now that Neto is seemingly off the table. So I'm seeing lots of comps of this young man running up the pitch. So there you go. Shakhtar has rejected a verbal proposal of 30 million euros, 25 million pounds from Everton last week. There are a lot of teams looking at him. Fabrizio Romano says, keep an eye on top talent. Mykhailo Mudryk, Everton had the verbal agreement turned down last week. Arsenal have explored conditions of the deal a few days ago, but just on the player side, many clubs want to watch until the end. Um, Look, this player looks like he mostly plays on the left. I think we need somebody that kind of plays on the right. He looks like a very exciting player, a very quick player, very skillful, silky player. So maybe this is somebody that Arsenal are really looking at and will go after if things really aren't going for Pedro Neto. Um, so I don't have much to really say negatively or positively about this because I just don't know enough about the player to really make like a definitive like stance on it. Um, Crispy Rice says Mudryk. So that's how you say it. Amazing. Mudryk. Thank you so much. Um, I'm just not, you guys can let me know how you feel about it. But this seems like an Arsenal type signing, a young player with a lot of talent, a lot of, could be something for the future, kind of like Fabio Vieira and Sambi type. It's just a matter of can he make a difference this season or will he be kind of like Sambi and he won't really be able to affect the game at the top level. This is the Premier League. We're playing in difficult competitions and that's my only like opposition take to bringing in somebody that plays in an inferior league, but if you're good enough, then you play, and so maybe he would be good enough. Yo-Yo says, shouldn't be another project unless their talent and projection is higher than anyone else at the club currently. I agree. Elliot Roberts says, speed merchant with a little end product could be another Gervinho. um, High Tech J says he looks like Jamie Carragher. He does look like Jamie Carragher. That's nuts. Yes, he does. Let's see. Mudryk, not Oh, I have it wrong on the screen. I apologize. I was doing this really quickly, but you guys know who I'm talking about, right? Beth says, I like the look of him, but he seems to be less experienced than ESR. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? He's a young player, probably with some sort of high ceiling, and it would be a risk, but maybe it would work out for us. But I haven't looked at this window as a future window. I'm looking at this window as a get us to competing now window, and I think we've already bought one player for the future, which is Fabio Vieira, current and future. And so do we really need to bring in another one when we already have 20-year-olds carrying our team? I don't think so. So I'd actually put this low on the list of options for me, even though a lot of people really rate him, but I don't hold that opinion, I don't hold it very tightly. Like he could have a way higher ceiling than anybody else. I just haven't seen enough of him. Matt G says this looks like like one of those opportunity transfers. Yeah, I mean, the thing about opportunity transfers is are they going to be Martinelli or are they going to be Sambi? Martinelli steps straight into the first team and can make a real even he needed some time, but ultimately comes straight in and makes a bang. He doesn't need to go to under 23s. He's straight in. Sambi comes straight into the first team, and it's very clear that he's not really ready, to affect the game at this level. And so what kind of opportunity is it? Because I think if he's not going to be a Martinelli, don't waste your time on this. Go get somebody who's ready to really step in because Saka needs rest. Like he needs time out. He's not right. Mudryk looks a real talent. James says enough of the kids in our team, Jess. Andrew says Zinchenko must be knowledgeable with regarding Mudryk, a fellow countryman. Yeah, maybe he can give us 2 cents. Nenem says we won't get him in the future. He will be more expensive. Moshin says Mudryk will end up being in a top team like Real Madrid or Bayern. That's high praise. Dev M says, I have a feeling we won't sign any more players this window. Edu and Arteta may wait till January to strengthen the squad. That be by that time, who knows what will have happened. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a risk. And the January market is always so tough. Even Edu said it in the all or nothing. Why wait to a worse market to address problems that are hurting you right now? I don't understand why we wait. Um, let's see. Mark says, I know next to nothing about Mudryk, but if we add another talent for cheaper than Neto, that's good. We get him before someone else does. I agree. Asensio, he should know. The other thing that I'll say is that sometimes it is beneficial to get the Borussia Dortmund talent before. Sometimes it's better to get them before. Like when we how much I mean, wouldn't it have been better potentially to have gotten Jude Bellingham when we could have? Now we can't really get him. So this may be a really smart move. If he's close enough to Saka where he can affect the game. Because what is he? He's 21. Let me look it up really quick, you guys. Let's see. He's 21 years old. So, he's not 19, like, he's not a child, you know what I mean? So, it's kinda like, well, if he could affect the game enough, then maybe you could bring him in and get him before the Borussia Dortmund type teams do, So, for me, like, it could be a good thing, it could be something that we look back on in a couple years and we're like, "Yeah, that was super, super smart." But, yeah. We'll see. Yo-Yo says, "I think after the World Cup, a lot of players will have itchy feet." That's a really good point. And the thing about Mudryk is if you get him in, he won't be at the World Cup. So maybe he is somebody that could step in. Because I also think about that. How many players do we have not going to the World Cup that can be significant to us, when our players are coming back? Saka could go far in the World Cup, Martinelli, Gabriel, Jesus, they're all probably going to be there. And I doubt Vieira will be there. Zinchenko won't be there. Tierney won't be there. So that could be really beneficial to us to have some players that are coming into the squad that can kind of, play when those players are definitely going to be wrecked after that World Cup. There's 350 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Yo-Yo says, I think after the World Cup. Oh, yeah, you already said that. Sorry. Let's see what you guys are saying on the poll. The poll that you guys 255 of you guys have voted, which is insane. Will Arsenal sign another player before deadline? 74% of you guys said yes. 26% of you guys said no. Keep voting on that. And there's almost 200 of you guys that have liked this video, which is amazing. Please continue to do that. It really does help get the channel seen and and helps us grow, helps the community grow. Pokit says fatigue is going to be insane this season. Getting more squad depth is really important. It really is. And if there wasn't the Winter World Cup, I don't think I'd be so like hell bent on it. But because there is, I just can't get over the fact that I feel like we need two players. We need two players. We already have the funny thing about Thomas Partey being injured is that we know that to be the case. And a lot of people were saying before we actually got confirmation that we could just move Zinchenko into midfield. He's injured too. They get injured in bunches. And so we do need two players. We really do. Joshua says Spurs and United have better depth than us. Take away Banner. Let's get real. They do have more depth. I question Spurs' depth being so much better than ours. I get that, but they also have depth in positions that we don't. We have quite a bit of decent depth in defense. Where we don't have depth is in midfield and up top. And those are the positions that I feel like we never quite address with the ferocity that we should. Every window, we're bringing in center backs, we're bringing in fullbacks, we're doing this, we're doing that. But can we please bring in a midfielder that could play in Thomas Partey or Xhaka's position right now? Can we please bring in another attacker so it's not just Jesus? Could we do that? It just feels like it's never the priority, and it really annoys me. So yeah, but that's kind of the info on Mudryk. I don't know what's going on with this earbud, but it's like vibrating in my ear and it's actually insane. So moving on, let's talk about Zaha. So there has been some light rumors on Zaha. I do think that some of these are more opinion pieces than anything coming from Miguel Delaney, who I don't really consider to be super um, reliable in any sort of way. I just think, oh, Arsenal can't get Pedro Neto, so they may turn to Zaha. I also saw like Fabrizio Romano said, um, Crystal Palace are not interested in selling Zaha, and why would they be? He may leave for free next season. I think he only has 1 year left on his deal, and that might be better for him as well, is to wait until after the season and then see who will take him on a free, because I think some of the big teams will look at him on a free next summer. But, Zaha is a player that I do think would improve us, has the right type of experience, but I'm just not quite sure that he would be the right fit for what we're trying to do in terms of, like, the project and all that kinda stuff. He is um, a little bit what's the word? I don't know what to say, like, I don't know how to explain it. You guys know what I mean about Zaha. He's a little, you know? And so I'm not quite sure he fits in with what we're trying to do, but I do think Zaha is, like, kind of underrated in a way and a little bit disrespected. I know that he made a big move to Manchester United, which I think has ultimately hurt him, but he's been really consistent for Crystal Palace. He's had some injury issues, but ultimately, like, he's always a threat, and now that he has some better players around him, he's looking even better. And the idea that players are no longer disposable at 29, 30 years old, I think is laughable. Players are playing now until their mid-30s, and so I don't think you need to always keep your players that long, but the idea that you shouldn't bring any players that are over 26, like Arsenal is not a child's club. Like we're not a, development club all the time. Sometimes we are going to need players in our team that have that type of experience. We did Project Youth to reset the club, but the idea that anybody that we bring in has to be 23 or younger, which I kind of feel like I see that in some of the fan base, like, "Oh, he's 26, he's too old." He's not. He's not too old. Now Zaha is above that, and, he comes with his own quirks and, issues and stuff like that. I hate to even say issues because I feel like that's projecting, but, I think he's a player that would improve us, but ultimately, I don't think he's a player that's gonna come to us. I don't see Patrick Vieira selling, Zaha to us, and, he's just perfect for what they're trying to do right now, and if he leaves on a free next season, I think he'll have a lot more options. So, I don't see this happening, but, a lot of Arsenal fans are like, "We should get him, we should get him." I think the window kinda closed on that. We should have got him instead of Pepe. That's really where the mistake was made. And I do think, like, if you really looked at it, like Aubameyang, Zaha, and whoever else we would have had at that time would have been a killer front three. Even like just Aubameyang, Zaha together would have been insane. So yeah. Curtis says Zaha is not a team player. Personality is toxic and complains about everything. He doesn't press, and that will disrupt the dressing room if he's seated on the bench. C. Wilder says, I'm not a Zaha fan. Don't think he suits our dressing room either. Yeah, I'll let you guys say those things. I won't say it because I just don't want people to be like, "Oh, you're saying these things about him." Like, I don't know him personally or anything like that. Um, let's see. Um, Terrence Tibbs says, "Poor Aubameyang got beaten." Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like the news around Aubameyang was really terrible to see. Aubameyang was attacked by masked gunmen. I think they said that robbed him and his family, which is terrible, terrible news. And I, pray for his family, and I'm thinking about his family and thinking about him because regardless of how things shook out at Arsenal, like that's like the last thing you want to hear is that is some scary stuff, and it's happening more and more and more. Gabrielle was robbed. Now Aubameyang's been robbed. Di Maria has been robbed. Like there's so many players that you think of, and they're really keying in on these footballers, and because they put a lot of things on social media, they feel like they know where things are at, and they're kind of plotting on them, and it's really crazy. And so, I'm praying that everybody's okay and that Aubameyang, like obviously, like physically, I hope he's okay, but psychologically, because that kind of stuff can really rattle you. Um, but back to, the what we're talking about is, yeah, Zaha is kind of an individualist. He's not really like you guys said, he's maybe not like the best team player, but I still think that like he would improve us. He's just not perfect. And again, when you're getting to your imperfect options in your list, they tend not to fit perfectly. And that's just kind of what it is. Jeff says Zaha is a great player. However, he's a maverick. It's all about him. I only want a team player with the same attitude to Jesus. Fair enough. Deb M says Abba has gone through so much in the past few years. He really has. And so, again, definitely thinking about his family and thinking about him. I hope that he's, you know, rebounds from this and everybody's okay, because that's really, really scary. That's really, really scary. So yeah, moving on. There's 380 of you guys in here, which is really, really nice. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Tielemans. Tielemans. Just waiting around at Leicester. Like, are they coming to get me or no? So it's finally coming out a lot more than it was before, but this has been like in the fine print the entire time, is that Leicester have always wanted, so we've always wanted to pay around 25 million. So I think there is this misconception that he's always been 25 million this entire window, which he hasn't. Leicester has wanted 40 million for him. And the thing about Leicester is that that's smart, because if they waited to the end of the window and other teams' deals fall through, like let's say Liverpool decide, you know what, I need a midfielder, and Arsenal are also like, I need a midfielder, and Aston Villa are like, I want a midfielder. Then all of a sudden you have a bidding war, and then you can potentially get 40 million, which is ultimately why I think Jesus costs a lot more as well, is because Manchester United or Manchester City actually weren't desperate to sell him, but also there were 3 teams, that were interested in him, so the price remained healthy. With Tielemans, the longer that Leicester waits, of course, it's high risk, high reward. You have the more likelihood that other teams will come in and keep that price healthy. But you also run the risk of, at the very end of the window, only get a small fee. So basically they're paying either we're going to get 40 or we're going to get 20. But it was never the case that Tielemans was always sitting there and it was 25 million and we just wouldn't pull the trigger. Like, I don't know how interested we actually are in Tielemans. I know that things may have changed, but ultimately Arsenal don't want to pay 40 million for Tielemans with 1 year left. And I also saw that there was a report from a Midlands journalist that was saying that Arsenal don't want to pay that fee. No, it wasn't that Aston Villa are actually interested in him, but he's pretty sold on going to Arsenal either this window or the next. And so maybe maybe that's a January thing where you offer them 15 million in January or something like that, take it or leave it. Or we do get him next summer because he's so bought in, and maybe Xhaka leaves or something like that. I also saw something. It's not really like any news that's backed up by anybody significant. It's somebody that people trust. I think his name is like IMAT or something like that. I don't know anything about him, but they were saying that the Vieira coming in stalled the Tielemans deal. Now, that's just somebody saying something, but you have to say that a lot of the noise around the Tielemans deal did kind of go silent right after we signed Vieira, and Vieira came in so under the radar and was definitely facilitated by George Mendes, but he was offered to us. Vieira was offered to us, and he wasn't somebody that I think was particularly on our radar, but when we got the opportunity, we took it. And so I wonder if that was you know, with an eye to George Mendes helping us in future deals. But again, we haven't gotten Rafinha and we haven't gotten Pedro Neto. So has this relationship really helped us out? I'm not sure. So far, because I haven't seen Fabio Vieira play for Arsenal, right? But if it's stopping the Tielemans deal, I'm not quite sure that I feel like that was the right move in the short term. I think short term Tielemans helps us a little bit more than Fabio Vieira, but that's the choice that the club made. And so it is what it is. But I still feel like we need another midfielder, whether it's Tielemans or not. And if he's really sold on the project, that's a good thing. That's a good thing that you have a player that's potentially really sold on Arsenal and what we're trying to do and would really be open to coming. But I'm not quite sure that this gets done. I'm not quite sure that we bring in a midfielder. I just have this weird feeling that we're not, because it just doesn't feel like it, right? There was also a little bit of like something about Sambi. Sambi needed to go. And I do think another midfielder might need to leave in order to open up the space for Tielemans in the squad. You wanna have squad balance, right? You don't want your squad to be at one point, we were really heavy on defenders, and then we lightened it up and it was a lot better. Now we're kinda heavy on midfielders, and I'm not quite sure that everybody that would be there would get minutes. Like, Sambi at the moment doesn't really seem like he's gonna get a lot of minutes, and so maybe there is something to Sambi potentially being loaned out, which if you asked me, would I rather keep Sambi and not get Tielemans and maybe wait till January or loan out Sambi and bring in Tielemans? I'd rather do that because Tielemans is gonna give us a lot more than Sambi can this season. And that's no shade to Sambi, but he's just not ready. He's just not ready. We already have Fabio Vieira, who is somebody that needs time to adapt. Two of our midfield spots are taken up by two players that are potentially not ready to really contribute. That's just me saying, like, Fabio Vieira could come in and be amazing, right? So it would be nice to have somebody who's not El Neni that could actually affect what we do, in midfield. Right now, El Neni is not really doing much for us. Sambi's not doing anything for us. Fabio Vieira is not playing. So where is that midfield depth? It doesn't actually exist. So whether it's Tielemans or not, Arsenal need to bring in a midfielder. And when I say a midfielder, I'm not saying a number 10. I'm saying somebody that could actually play in the meat, in the center of the pitch, that can be a high touch, high volume provider in midfield. Tielemans could do that for us. Another player could do that for us. But it needs to happen. Like, it just needs to happen. Alistair says, "What do people see in Griezmann? Not impressed him at all. I don't think we need to be looking at him." TJ says, "Everyone talks very highly of Sambi. I'm not having it that he's not very good or ready. He just needs game time." I just don't see a player that's gonna really contribute, in difficult moments, in times where because what I'm thinking about is the inevitability when we're in the business end of the season where we tend to get our injuries to the likes of Thomas Partey, when we get the injury potentially to a fullback or whatever, key players to our team who can actually step in and affect and actually step in for that player. Business end of the season is when we always have those injuries. And so I'm talking about when it's just, us and another team fighting for top 4, who's gonna be able to step in and actually keep the level at the same keep the levels the same? When we're potentially in a Europa League final and Thomas Partey is injured, who can step in and actually affect the game? That's not Sambi. He can do okay in cup competitions, early stage Europa League competitions, but do you really see a level from Sambi that's gonna go from where he is now to potentially in a final being able to step up for us? I don't see it. Like, let's keep it 100, and that's what we're looking at here, is that we could potentially be in finals this season and not have our players, and we need to have somebody there that can step in, and that's really what it is. In midfield, right now, we don't have anybody that can step in properly for Granit Xhaka or Thomas Partey, and that's a problem. It's a problem for me. I don't know if it's a problem for you guys, but it's a problem for me. Um, AB says Sambi can get games in Europa, early stage Europa League. Early stage Europa League. I also think we're forgetting that Arsenal was not necessarily gliding through the Europa League when we were in it a couple seasons ago. We had to keep bringing in our better players to make sure that we could get through it because Europa as easy like it's easier than the Champions League, but it ain't that easy. So when you start playing your scrubs, when you start playing your squad players and your fringe guys, it's not the same, So I just see Sambi as somebody that needs game time, but potentially on a loan somewhere so that he can do a Nuno. I think Sambi has a lot of talent. I just don't think he can contribute to the level that we potentially need this season. Joshua says Abba and Pepe bailed us out of the group stages. People have to be real. Like, we weren't actually like zooming through those group stages. You know what I mean? TJ says, how serious is Arteta going to take it? In terms of what? Like Europa League? He should be taking it very serious. Solomon says, what's the point of having Xhaka, Zinchenko, and Tielemans in the same position? None of them will want to be a bench player when everybody is fit. That's not our problem, though. Like, this bench player idea is something that we need to take out and throw it away. No more bench players, options, depth, quality squad depth. The best teams in the league don't worry about bringing in players that are going to be afraid to be on the bench because they should be fighting for time. Like it shouldn't matter. And so the idea of a bench player, like El Neni is a bench player, Holding is a bench player. Ideally, Tielemans would be an option, not a bench player. You know what I mean? So I think we need to take that out and just dispose of it somewhere. I don't like the idea of bench players or squad players or anything like that because the best teams don't really have those. They have quality options. And so Tielemans can also play on the right. So if Odegaard gets injured, you can play him on the right. You could play Tielemans and Vieira. You could play Zinchenko and Tielemans. You could play Xhaka and Tielemans. Like you have options for different days for the inevitability that we'll have 3 or 4 injuries at one time, and we want to make sure that we're not playing Sambi and Fabio Vieira, 2 players that we know are potentially not ready to hold this team up in midfield. So we're not playing El Neni, Vieira, and Sambi. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's like get the squad player, bench player out. Good players will not be afraid to come to Arsenal and have to fight for their position. And if they are, we don't need them here. We don't need them here. Fabio Vieira already knows that he's going to have to fight for his position because if he wants to play on the left wing, he's going to have to fight Martinelli. If he's going to try to play right wing, he's going to have to fight Saka. And if he wants to play in Odegaard's position, he's going to have to fight damn hard. So the idea of bench players, squad players, all of that, that just needs to just go. Tielemans is already set on coming to Arsenal. He knows that there's players that are playing in his position. Zinchenko has already come to Arsenal. He knows he's going to have to fight for his position. So why are we worried about that? I don't know why we're worried about having good options in our team. It just makes no sense to me. CJ says, hate to be that guy, but letting Basuma go to the scum is starting to look like a howler. Wasn't he like 25 million? He was like 25 million. I just wonder if we didn't go for Basuma because he doesn't fit what we're trying to do. Because I actually don't see Basuma as being the type of player that can actually play Thomas Partey's position. I don't. He's not particularly a great passer. He's not really somebody who he's more of just like a destroyer, retriever type of central defensive midfielder. He can do more and has done, but Graham Potter is smart enough of a manager, as we've seen at this point. If he gave him the job just to kind of retrieve the ball and give it to other players, that's possibly what he's best at. And so that's not actually Thomas Partey's position. A lot of our play and buildup goes through that player. And so I think we didn't go after Basuma because that's the type of player that he is and he doesn't quite fit. So for me, it's not about not getting Basuma and letting him go to Spurs. That's not really my thought process. It's more we need to identify a player that can do what Thomas Partey can do. And players like that are very expensive. They don't go to clubs for 25 million. Players like Thomas Partey don't go for that cheap because they're hard to find. There's very few players in world football that can actually do the defensive role and also play. Can actually ball. It's hard, so I think we didn't go after Basuma because he doesn't fit what we're trying to do. And I don't actually think that that's a bad thing. I know some people don't like it, but that's kind of my thought on it. He just really can't play the Thomas Partey position. That's just is what it is. I know that it hurts because he went to Spurs. Like I really do get that. I understand, especially because of the fee, but our play is not flowing through Basuma. It's just not. It's just not. Ulusu Suen says, I've been hearing about a CM cover all summer, and I don't see it simply because we are so tactically versatile. We play differently depending on personnel, and so conventional one-to-one backup might not apply. Fair enough. That's fair enough. Nocturno Gunner says if we were gonna get upset about missing out on anyone, it's Bruno G and Paqueta. I think Bruno G was more of a mistake than Basuma because he could actually do the role where everything flows through him. I have no idea why we didn't go for him. It just every day, like more than Paqueta, because Paqueta is a 10. He can play multiple positions. And of course, it hurts me that he went somewhere else because he's amazing. But Bruno, it just doesn't make sense because he can also play Xhaka's position. So I don't understand, why we didn't go after him, but it's just something that I'm gonna have to let go at this point. You know what I mean? I just have to let it go. I can't I can't be upset about it anymore. Sol says it would have been awkward to get Basuma at the time given the allegations we know about. I'm not going to speak too much on that. Saida says if we added a few million to the fee we signed Sambi for, we could have had a midfielder already to contribute to our midfield. He definitely needs a loan, but it looks like he's staying. Sambi is a weird one because we did pay a very big fee for him and he's not ready. He's behind El Neni in the pecking order. I think that says quite a bit. So we'll have to see what happens with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him on a loan and potentially maybe we do bring in Tielemans for that reason because Tielemans can help us now. We need players that can help us now. That's my take on it. Now, last but not least, I do want to talk about Ainsley. Southampton are really pushing to sign Ainsley. I'm not sure if it's on a loan or a permanent deal. I know we really want a permanent deal, but we have the option to trigger an additional year on his deal so that he can go on a loan and potentially be sold next summer. So that's what I see for him. Southampton and I think also West Ham were really looking at him because and Bournemouth are also looking at him. But and this is coming from Marky and Bryans, and he says there are no other expected departures as things stand. Bellerin will go. I don't know why he's saying that. But yeah, Maitland-Niles seems to be on his way out. We just don't know when it'll happen. It'll probably happen at the very, very end because if we actually want to sell him for a fee, the best possible thing for a Bournemouth or Southampton to do is offer us 4 million at the very end and we just cave in. So I see Ainsley going on the last day, just like I see Bellerin going on the last day when we cancel his contract. And then the squad will be what it is. And hopefully we see some incomings come in. But Ainsley, it's crazy how he has barely any suitors. And people only want to pay a small amount, but that's what happens when you kind of sabotage your own career. And so hopefully we could just get him out. But yeah, Ainsley, that's pretty much the deal with him. Not really much more to say on that. And yeah, we already kind of talked about Sambi. Potentially, maybe he goes on a loan. That's just more me speculating, but I do think another midfielder would have to go in order to bring Tielemans in. And he seems the most likely candidate because he's the one getting the least amount of minutes. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed, this little update. I know we play on Wednesday, and so tomorrow I'll have to see because I'm going into the offices to create some content for Give Me Sport tomorrow. So I'll see if I can do a preview, maybe a short one while I'm there, just so we can make sure that we chit chat about lineups and stuff like that, and maybe some potential rotation because we have a really big game on Sunday against Manchester United, which we need to be ready for. But we'll talk about some potential rotation. I'll let you guys know. You guys will see on either Twitter or you guys will get the notification if you guys are subscribed, which you should be, on whether or not there'll be a match preview, but I really will try to make sure that I do it. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. If you guys are just joining, you guys can go back and rewatch. But we went through Neto, we went through Zaha, Mudryk, Asensio, Tielemans, the whole nine. Went through some of your guys' comments. You guys have been absolutely insane today. Almost 400 of you guys in here. We more than reached we've actually almost got to 300 likes, which is so good. I really do appreciate all of you guys' support. Like I said, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, you can at JacineoGram. I'll be doing more content on there. I'll be spending more time on there than on Twitter because I feel like I can give you guys more more valuable content there. So make sure you guys follow me on Instagram. And before you guys go, the FCA awards are still open. You guys can still vote. And if you guys want to vote for SheKnowsArsenal, please do. I really would appreciate it. You guys can just copy and paste that straight into a tweet it out, and then that counts as a vote for me. I'd really appreciate that if you guys feel like I am worthy. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys